The crucifixion of Jesus is recorded in the New Testament books, known as the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This Bible story is the central summary of the saving gospel of Jesus. Jesus had prophesied of his death in Matthew. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Jesus understood that his life would be required as a sacrifice for the sins of man. At the height of his ministry and miracles, many Jews came to believe in Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God. Jewish leaders feared Jesus because of his growing followers. With the help of Judas Iscariot, Roman soldiers arrested Jesus, and he was put on trial for claiming to be the King of the Jews. According to Roman law, the punishment for rebellion against the king was death by crucifixion. The Roman governor Pontius Pilate was reluctant regarding the punishment for Jesus. Pilate could find no wrong in Jesus, yet he wanted to give the people what they wanted, and that was the death of Jesus. Pilate washed his hands in front of the crowd to symbolize that he was not taking responsibility for the bloodshed of Jesus, and then handed Jesus over to be beaten and lashed. Jesus had a crown of thorns thrust on his head and made to carry his cross along the pathway to the hill where he would be crucified. The location of Jesus' crucifixion is known as Calvary, translated from a place of skull. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross, to carry it behind Jesus. 27 And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. 28 But turning to them Jesus said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. 29 For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore and the breasts that never nursed. 30 Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. 31 For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry? 32 Two others, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. 33 And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. 34 And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they cast lots to divide his garments. 35 And the people stood by, watching, but the rulers scoffed at him, saying, He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one. 36 The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine. 37 And saying, If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. 38 There was also an inscription over him, This is the King of the Jews. 39 One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. 40 But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? 41 And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. 42 And he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. 43 And he said to him, Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. 44 It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, 45 While the sun's light failed. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. 46 Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said this he breathed his last. 47 Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, Certainly this man was innocent. 48 And all the crowds that had assembled for this spectacle, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. 49 And all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things. Luke 23:26-49. The last words of Jesus Christ on the cross. 1. Matthew 27. 46 tells us that about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? 2. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Luke 23:34. 3. I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise. Luke 23:43. 4. Dear woman, here is your son. And, here is your mother. When Jesus recognized his mother standing near the cross with the Apostle John, he entrusted his mother's well-being to John's responsibility. John 19:26-27. 5. I am thirsty. John 19:28. Here, Jesus was answering the messianic prophecy from Psalm 69:21. They put gall in my food and gave me vinegar for my thirst. 6. It is finished. John 19:30. The work his Father had sent him to do, which was to teach the gospel, perform miracles, and achieve reconciliation for his people, was fulfilled. The debt of sin was paid. 7. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Luke 23:46. Jesus willingly gave his life. Jesus faced the incredible task of laying down his life as a ransom for the world. This task was traumatic and overwhelming, but Jesus accepted it willingly. After hanging on the cross for 3 hours, Jesus finally gave up his life. He was not helpless at the hands of those who crucified him. He alone had the authority to end his life. In Matthew 20:28, Jesus says, "The Son of Man came to give his life as a ransom for many." The crucifixion was Jesus's plan, and it was his plan from before creation. He's the Lamb who was slain from the foundation of the world, Revelation 13:8. But Jesus's death is still death. It is still an abomination. Though Jesus submitted, this doesn't mean everything was fine. The author of life was murdered by evil men, Acts 2:23. But Jesus yielded to the evil and injustice because he knew who was really in charge. Extraordinary events marked the death of Jesus. The sky was completely dark for 3 hours as Jesus hung on the cross. At the moment of his last breath, the earth shook, the temple curtain split from top to bottom, and the tombs of saints opened and their bodies raised from the dead. The crucifixion of Jesus was a part of God's plan from the very beginning of the birth of Jesus. The sin of mankind would require a sacrifice. The sinless life of Jesus was lived and given so that man could receive salvation and eternal life in heaven. The scriptures below contain the full Bible story of the crucifixion. To learn more about the resurrection, I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied, that's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money. So they filled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel. And they used them to buy the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me. Meanwhile Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you? But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Messiah? For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message, don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. What shall I do, then, with Jesus who is called the Messiah? Pilate asked. They all answered, crucify him. Why, what crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them. But he had Jesus flogged, and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" they said. They spit on him, and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene, named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means, the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head they placed the written charge against him: "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 rebels were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads. 40 and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross, if you are the Son of God." In the same way the chief priests, the teachers of the law and the elders mocked him. 42, "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" Quote, "In the same way the rebels who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. From noon until 3 in the afternoon darkness came over all the land. About 3 in the afternoon Jesus cried out in a loud voice, 'Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani?' which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing there heard this, they said, "He's calling Elijah." Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. 49 The rest said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment the curtain of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified, and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God."